Hello and welcome to my study. This is my cat Tink and we are here for #UK, #whereiwrite, and Tink has just woken up, so she's a bit sleepy and a bit grumpy. Oh yes she is. So I'm going to put her on her throne, which is over here, and then we're going to get on with a little tour of my study. So I'm delighted to be here today to show you a little bit of my study, which is where I work. I'll talk you through some of the things on my desks and on my wall and my shelves and things like that. And then what we're going to do afterwards, we're going to have a look at some of my research stuff, which is all down here, my folders and things like that that I did for some of the Seamaid. And then at the end we'll do a little bit of a reading, and it'll be the first public reading from Song of the Seamaid, yet exclusive. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, my dear friend Pauline is filming me today on her iPhone, because I don't have an iPhone. I can't afford one because I'm just a writer. And she's going to pass me the phone in a minute, and then I'll show you around some shelves, and then she'll take it back and we'll go on from there. Okay, thank you Pauline, my beautiful assistant. Okay, here we go. So, this is my study. I'll do a quick little tour. Look, there's Tink on her throne. And as you can see, my study is packed, absolutely packed to the rafters with books. And what I keep in here is all the novels that I own, and I do have them in alphabetical order. That is not because I'm obsessive compulsive or anything, but because I need to be able to find them. So as you can see, I've started here and I've got Margaret Atwood and Isabel Allende, and there's some of my favourite writers. And it goes all the way around to short stories and some plays and bits and bobs down there. So the other thing I have up here is, this is my TBR shelf, if you can see that. And these are all the books I haven't read yet that I own. And this is a clay mouse that I made when I was 10 years old. As you can see, it weighs a ton. I'm surprised it didn't explode in the kiln actually, but he does a really important job, which is so I can actually turn the light on and off. And so that is my TBR books to be read, and these are my interview books, which are books from wonderful writers that I interview for my website. So this week I had the wonderful, amazing Joanne Harris on my website, and that's her book there, her latest book. And this is one I've just finished reading, Early One Morning by Virginia Bailey, and an interview with her will be coming up soon. Let me show you another of my favourite shelves in my study, and that is my shelf with the visitors on. Look at that. Aren't they lovely? And I've got one of each. That's the proof, paperback, trade paperback and the hardback. And there's a little gap there because that's where Song of the Seamaid goes, which is my latest book. Isn't it beautiful? So we'll be reading from that later. And that is my favourite corner in my study at the moment, because that's got all my front covers from all my books, including the German cover for the visitors, which is called The Seven Senses of Adeliza Golding. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so there we are, and there's Tink having a wash, and here's some more novels and beautiful loot that belongs to my mum. And there's a picture of Lily, our old cat who died, and oh bless her. And look, that is a picture that Poppy did for me, and it says best mummy in the world, and that is actually true. That is a fact, and I can prove that because look, I got Best Mother 2007. That is a real Oscar. Well, I was the best mother that year anyway. And there is my lovely Poppy, and that was her on World Book Day, dressed as Oliver from Oliver and the Seawigs. And look, this is an ace little poster that she made for me with all the things that I like SpongeBob and The Wire and The West Wing and Borgen and things like that. She knows what I like. And there's my New Yorker calendar. Okay, so coming over here, oh look at that face. There's Poppy when she's a lot younger, and hedgehogs. I love hedgehogs. Okay, there are some of my DVDs. These are costume dramas and things like that. And there's my TV. And I cover everything up with cheap scarves that I buy from charity shops just to keep the dust off, really, because I don't dust. I refuse. And those are my costume dramas, and I watch those on my TV, and quite often when I'm researching and things like that. just to kind of get me in the mood, and I quite often watch a costume drama from the period to get me in the mood for what I'm writing. So these are my files on my shelf, and this is from when I used to be a lecturer and a teacher. Things I used to teach, like American literature and narrative and things like that. And then these are my files that I have for my novels. Oh look, the Visitor sequel, that might come one day, who knows. I know some of Poppy's books. And then over in this corner I have these are all books on writing, which I refer to from time to time. These are some of my favourite books. 7 Basic Plots by Booker, and if you can just see that, The Writer's Journey by Vogler. These are 2 of my favourite books on writing, and I read these and I look at these before I start any new book, because they just get me into the mood of thinking about plot and structure and how stories work. And this is another one of my favourites, The Magic of Myth, which is all about Star Wars, but it's actually about the hero's journey, which is written about in this amazing book. And these are brilliant books as well. This one, look at this one, How to Write Damn Good Fiction. That is one of the best books I've ever read on writing. And that one is great, How to Write a Mystery. That is such a great book, even if you're not writing a mystery, because it's just so good on how to structure enigma and surprise and how to make your readers interested in your plot. That's such a good book. So I do get those out and look at them from time to time. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start talking about these. And these are boxes full of research that I did for Song of the Seamaid. So I'm just going to pass back to Pauline. Thank you, Pauline. And here we are. Hello. And so I'm just going to look at some of the stuff for Song of the Seamaid so that you can see how a novel gets written, or how I write a novel anyway. So when we start, I always start with one of these, a notebook, and usually bought for me by my lovely fella, and I have a different one for every book, and this was the one that I had for Song of the Seamaid. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot left in there. That's because I tear pages out and I look at them again, and I you know, retype them and things like that. But it certainly was a very packed book with little ideas for the book. So there you can see that, Pauline? That was when I decided what the main character's name was going to be. Door name, my lady scientist's surname. So it was going to be a surname to begin with, and then I changed it. And what I do with this is when I'm first getting sort of glimmerings for the novel, first ideas and things like that, I start jotting ideas down in this. And so the first thing it says in here is science novel, which is what I called Song of the Seamaid for ages, before I could think of anything better. And it just gives a kind of little thesis of what I want the story to be about. And then I go into bits of plot and bits and bobs of research and setting and just any ideas that come to me. And I just start jotting down books that I've found. These are all the different books that I was looking at for Song of the Seamaid. So when that's kind of getting nice and full, then I start collecting bits and bobs, and I tend to put them in one of those box files over there. So I will have had one for Song of the Seamaid, and once that starts to get full, then usually that's kind of a good sign that I know that I'm ready to really get cracking. And one of the first things that I'll do is start buying books. So as you can see, Pauline, if you want to look at that box is full of books that were used for the research for Song of the Seamaid. There's a lot of books in there, and I get a lot of my books from second-hand bookshops and Amazon Marketplace and places like that, as cheap as I can, and library books, of course. And what I do is, once I get a book, so this is a good example, this is a wonderful book that I got during Seamaid called Memoirs of an 18th Century Footman, which is, you know, in his own words, a real footman from the 18th century. And if you can see, what I do is I will read through the book and I will start underlining things and taking notes, and I'll put little annotations in the margin, things like LA, that means language, and I will underline things that I just think is like a really interesting use of language. So I'll say, as I was a whole month behind my time, I cried my belly full. Just things like that, that just for me, I think, oh, I like that, that's very 18th century. And if I get time, what I'll then do is type up those notes and have those as a kind of file for 18th century language. And then when I come to write the book, I'll have that out on the desk so that I can refer back to it and make it a bit more authentic for the period. And the other thing that I do is when I've finished reading the book, while I'm reading the book actually, I'll be taking notes. So when things occur to me, like on page 11, I must have had an idea about the book, and then I'll jot down the idea there, and then I don't forget it, and I don't have to carry around a separate notebook. And then what I'll do is I'll just probably photocopy that and pop it into my notes. So that's a good example of the kind of research I do. And once I've started collecting a few pictures and things like that, then what I start to do is on my doors up there, my cupboard doors, I start assembling a picture wall. And at the moment I've got the one up for the current book, but this is the picture wall for Song of the Seamaid. So can you see that for me? So these are some images from books about the 18th century in terms of dress, and there's interiors so you can see what people's houses look like. There's some more about how people would dress, and you can see I've annotated them, mob cap, things like that I want to use in the story. There's another one about how ladies dressed, and little details like the fact that they had a pocket that they tied around their middle, all that kind of thing. And then not just the period, this is a lovely one actually, this is Dr. Johnson's house in London that I visited, and that square staircase that you can see there is actually in the book. That's in Song of the Seamaid. I talk about that square staircase in the orphanage. And then I've also got other topics that I had to look at, like the age of sail. So there's some pictures of sailors below decks, and some information about ships and sailors in the age of sail. And then because it's a book about science, I visited a real-life cabinet of curiosities, which is at Burton Constable Hall in Hull. And these were some of the amazing things that I saw there in a real 18th century collection. So you've got things here like dragons and unicorns, which they believed existed, and even up here, mermaids, which they absolutely thought existed at the time. Okay, so once I've got those up on the wall, then I really feel that I'm in the world of the novel. And when I come in, you know, after the school run and I'm ready to sit down and write, I'll go over to my cupboard door and I can just sit there or stand there and just look at the pictures, and then I'm in the world. I'm in the world of the novel, and I can kind of shut out the 21st century and I can get into the story space in my head. So what happens then is that's not it. This, oh my God, I'm doing my backing. This is the research file, the final research file for the Song of the Seamaid. There's quite a lot of work in there. So as you can see, everything that I gathered, all the notes on these books, all the synopsis and chapter plans and all the different things that I did are all in here. So I'll give you an example. So I start off, I write a synopsis, and then I will write a chapter plan. So this was about the orphanage, which opens the book, chapters 1 to 3, and it will have bullet points of all the different things I want to go into those chapters. And then going on from there, it will have page numbers of all the different things that I've looked up in books, different details that I wanted to put in from the period, different ideas. And I will have that on the desk in front of me when I'm writing, so that I don't have to be scrabbling around and looking for the right thing. And then also in this file you can see I've got different sections on the 18th century here, so I'll have just everything that I found about the period is in there. 18th century gardens, 18th century footmen, and that's all about the Enlightenment, evolution. There's some notes on Dickens, not Dickens, Darwin, Dickens man, and women scientists and things like that. I'm not going to show you too much, we don't want to give it all away, do we? Okay, so that, folks, is basically how I write a novel. So you can see quite a lot of work goes into it. And then the actual drafting really isn't that long, and the drafting itself is done at my desk, which you can see here. And this is a desk that I've had since I was very young, since I was a teenager, that my mum and my lovely stepdad Russell bought for me when I was a teenager, and I still have it and I love it. And I do write at this desk here, and that's where I wrote The Visitors, and that's where I wrote Song of the Seamaid. So we're going to finish off with a little reading from Song of the Seamaid, which I'm just going to have a little drink of water. Okay, and as I said before, this is the first time that anyone in the public has heard a reading from this book. So here we are, beautiful cover from Hodder and Stoughton, the hardback cover for Song of the Seamaid, which is out in about a month's time. And just to give you a little introduction, this story is about an orphan girl called Dawnay, who is educated to be a scientist, and she goes abroad and she makes a remarkable discovery. ... Okay, so I'm just going to read you the very beginning, just the first page or so, to just give you a taster of the book. Are you sitting comfortably? And I'll begin. I think I had a brother once. We sit in the road below the window of a pie shop, his face obscure in the cat black of a London alley past midnight. We poke at the mortar with sharp sticks, then scrape away till the bricks come loose. He grunts as he manoeuvres the first one from its rest. A voice cries the hour. It is the watch in the next street, and we stop, waiting to see if the old man will turn into our alley and catch us. We hurry. I watch my brother's hands grasp the slackened bricks and pull them free, dry mortar crumbling dusty and mysterious in the dark air. When the hole is large enough, he shoves me through, and I spy 2 fat pies on the counter. In my littleness I can barely reach them, and do so on tiptoe, my brother fretting in whispers lest I drop them. I entice each pie on fingertips and pass them through to him. There is one for each of us, my brother and me, and once I have scrambled back out, we fall to eating them, face first, the red berries like gore on our dirty cheeks. He finishes first and wipes his fingers about his shirt. He takes my pie plate, licked clean, and tosses both in through the hole. A brisk breeze whistles up the alley and flings litter in our faces. We giggle and grab at it, my brother catching a slip of paper with neat writing on it. I know I cannot read, and I do not think he is able, but he scans it and passes it to me. For you, from me, says he. What does it say? I reply. He runs a finger along the letters. All thy life be happiness and love. There is a commotion behind us. I see a bad set of men with wicked faces looming towards us. I reach for my brother. He shouts at me, run! He shouts again, run! And I run, down the alley, around the corner, out into the thoroughfare. But I am thunderstruck. I will lose him, I think, my brother. Thus I turn on my heel and race back to the pie shop. All is quiet. I see a woman leaning by the wall and ask if she saw the gang. She points down yonder, and I quit her, not knowing where I am going. But I hear the men before I see them, laughing till they are like to split their sides. I find them striding along the footpath ahead, one holding my brother, who fights and chafes like a trapped rat, but it is a vain struggle. The man bangs my brother's legs against a post, and he hops quieter thereafter. I follow behind for streets and streets till the brackish smell of the docks fills my nose, and we come in sight of the vessels bobbing on the Thames. They drag him on board a boat, and though I wait and wait all through the night, he does not reappear. At morning light, the boat leaves the wharf, my brother hidden below. I stand on the quay and shout at the men on deck, yet my reedy voice is lost in the dockside hubbub, and the boat drifts away, my brother and my happiness with it. And that's all you're going to get. So the book is out in a month. I hope you enjoyed looking around my study and learning a little bit about where I write. And I just want to say thank you to Hachette UK, and I hope you enjoyed it.